All right, do you want to start with the prayers?
Yes. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
All right. Would you like to read some verses?
Sure, Prabhu. Just 1 second. Okay, Canto 4, Chapter 20, Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Prithu. Next one. Maitreya Uvacha Bhagavan Api Vaikuntha Sakam Maghavata Vibhu Yagyair Yagyapatis Tushto Yagya Bhuktam Abhashata. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, being very much satisfied by the performance of 99 horse sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, appeared on the scene. Accompanying him was King Indra. Lord Vishnu then began to speak. Text 2. There is no purport to this. Is that correct? Yeah. Text 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Eshate Akarshit Bhangam Hayamidha Satasyaha Kshamapayata Atmanam Amusya Kshantum Arhasi. Translation. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, my dear King Prithu, Indra, the King of Heaven, has disturbed your execution of 100 sacrifices. Now he has come with me to be forgiven by you. Therefore, excuse him. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this verse, the word Atmanam is very significant. It is a custom among yogis and jnanis to address one another or even an ordinary man as oneself. For a transcendentalist never accepts a living being to be the body. Since the individual self is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the self and the super self are qualitatively non-different. As the next verse will explain, the body is only a superficial covering, and consequently, an advanced transcendentalist will not make a distinction between oneself and another. To be honest, the translation is clear to me, but the purport is not very clear. From what I understand, is that transcendentalists see everybody as a spirit soul and not as the body. So, because the spirit soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they're qualitatively non different. That means they're the same. Qualitatively, they're all spiritual. Therefore, um, it reminds me of the verse from Bhagavad Gita that a learned Pandit sees um, a Brahmin, a dog eater, a elephant, um, a, a, everybody on the same level. What it basically means is that they see that behind the body is actually the spirit self. The body is just an outer covering, and the spirit soul is the actual force that drives the body. So that's how much I understood. Prabhu, would you like to say anything more about this verse?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that now Lord Vishnu uh, has come with Lord Indra to bid, to get forgiveness from Prithu Maharaj. He didn't go himself. Indra had to go with Lord Vishnu, so I thought that was interesting development. That's all I had to say about that.
Mm. So you're saying that Indra didn't go on his own, he went with Vishnu to.
Mm. He had to
Mm.
go with Vishnu, yeah.
Mm.
All right, did you want me to read the next one? Or do you want to continue?
Sure, Prabhu, if you want to read, that's fine.
Okay.
Text 3.
Okay, text 3. I'm just going to chant the prayers. We should always chant these prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Uh, reading from text 3. Sudaya Sardavoluke Naradeva Naratama Nabhi Duryanti Bhutebhyo Yarhi Natma Kalevaram. Translation: O King, one who is advanced in intelligence and eager to perform welfare activities for others is considered best among human beings. An advanced human being is never malicious to others. Those with advanced intelligence are always conscious that this material body is different from the soul. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In daily life, we find that when a madman commits murder, he is accused even by a high court judge. The idea is that a living entity is always pure because he is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he falls into the clutches of material energy, he becomes a victim of the three modes of material nature. Indeed, whatever he does under the influence of material nature, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 5:14. Nakartridvam na karmani lokasya sarjati prabhu nakarma pala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Actually, the living entity or soul does not do anything. Everything is done under the influence of the modes of material nature. When a man is diseased, the symptoms of the disease become a source of all kinds of pain. Those who are advanced in transcendental consciousness or Krishna consciousness are never envious, neither of the soul nor of the activities of the soul under the influence of material nature. Advanced transcendentalists are called Sudhiya. Sudhi means intelligence, Sudhi means highly advanced, and Sudhi means devotee. One who is both devoted and highly advanced in intelligence does not take action against the soul or the body. If there is any discrepancy, he forgives. It is said that forgiveness is a quality of those who are advancing in spiritual knowledge. So this is another nice verse, and it's basically saying here that when we're advanced in spiritual consciousness, we don't feel malice towards others, and we always realize that there is a difference between the material body and the soul. We can see that this person is just acting under the modes, but it's not really them. They're a spirit soul, but that their body is forcing them to act in particular ways under the influence of the material modes of nature. So everything we do in the material world is under these three modes, everything. And then when we actually make advancement, we engage our senses in the Lord's service, and then we're not acting under the modes. When we're engaging our speech, for instance, and talking about the Lord as we are doing here, or we engage our hearing or any of our senses or the objects of the senses in service to the Lord, we're free from this influence of the three modes of nature. We don't act under the modes of nature anymore, even though it seems like, well, because we're talking about the Srimad Bhagavatam, um, how does that free us from the three modes all of a sudden? How does that work? Well, it's not it's not like it takes time. It's a gradual process of purification. So we may be reciting the Bhagavatam with material motives, for instance, for name, fame, and adoration, or something like that. But when we're reciting the Bhagavatam and we're getting realizations about spiritual life and Krishna and the soul, when we get these realizations, we can understand that we have the right motivation to be speaking about the Bhagavatam. And what we're trying to do is help ourselves and also help others to understand these very intricate details. And so we have to be doing this service with devotion. That's the meaning of service. It means done with devotion. And when we become advanced, then we don't we forgive. We're forgiving, and we don't hold malice against anyone. We're not malicious towards other people, and that's because we have this vision. We understand that this person's acting under the modes, and so we forgive them. We just, in our hearts, we forgive them. Outwardly, externally, we may chastise them and say that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that, etc. But inside, we can be forgiving them. We can forgive them in our hearts, even if we have to instruct them externally and say, you shouldn't be doing that. It's not right. You know, that's why it's said that when a devotee is insulted, he doesn't take it personally. But if he sees that another devotee is being insulted, then he acts on behalf of the Lord and defends that devotee. Either he leaves the situation or he blocks his ears. There's injunction in the Shastra. He doesn't want to hear the blasphemy or criticism of other devotees, but for himself, he doesn't care if someone criticizes him. He sees that as mercy. That the Lord's given me some mercy here. I got a chance to be humble and make some advancement. So that's someone who's making advancement, an advanced transcendentalist. All right, I think that's all I can think of to say about that, unless you wanted to make a comment about that.
It's true. Actually, I feel like this is such an integral part of a devotee's life, because there's always something going on. So to to practice forgiveness and actually come to the platform of being able to forgive, um, that's that's actually a very high spiritual quality. I heard this from Chandramali Maharaj. He was saying that um, forgiveness is like a very, very high spiritual consciousness. So
Mm.
um, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but we can, even if we're not on that platform, we can still practice forgiveness, though. Um, we can do that, you know. But real forgiveness is not based on the body; it's based on the fact that you understand that the other person is a soul, and he's just a victim of the three modes of material nature. That's when it's really deep forgiveness, you know, like with that realization. But we can still practice forgiveness, you know, even if we're not very advanced, we can still do that and try to, like, for instance, you know, sometimes we don't feel like dancing in the kirtan, but if we start dancing, then we get we we get that feeling of wanting to dance. Or if we don't feel like chanting, if we just start chanting, then we get that feeling that we want to do it, you know. So sometimes we're not really on that level of forgiveness, but we can still do it. And you can feel a change in yourself when you do that. It frees you from envy and sort of like anger and all those negative emotions. Even if you're not seeing the person as a spirit soul, you can still try to do that, you know. All right. Will I just continue to the next verse? It's a short purport here. Maybe you can do the one
Yes,
after.
Prabhu. You can, yeah, you can continue.
Okay. Text 4. Purusha yadi yanti tvadrisha devamayaya shrama eva param jato dirgaya virdha sevaya. Translation: if a personality like you, who are so much advanced because of executing the instructions of the previous acharyas, is carried away by the influence of my material energy, then all your advancement may be considered simply a waste of time. Purport: in this verse, the word Vridha Sevaya is very significant. Vrida means old, Sevaya means by service. Perfect knowledge is acquired from the acharyas or liberated souls. No one can be perfect in knowledge without being trained by the Parampara system. Prithu Maharaj was completely trained in that line, therefore he did not deserve to be considered an ordinary man. An ordinary man who has only a conception of bodily existence is always bewildered by the modes of material nature. So we can just throw away all our advancement if we come under the influence of the material energy completely. Um, if we practice devotional service and then we decide to uh, allow ourselves to become materially contaminated by the material energy again, as Prabhupada describes that as an elephant who washes himself in the water and then goes onto the land and sprays himself with sand or dirt. So we get purified by the process of devotional service. But then if we just engage in material activities, it's counterproductive to spiritual advancement. And we need to be careful of that. That we get this training, we get this mercy through the Parampara, through Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas. If we don't take those instructions seriously, then we, we have to take them seriously. You got to take these instructions seriously and follow these instructions given by Srila Prabhupada about everything that he talked about, and not get carried away by the influence of the material energy. But it's also said, of course, that once we engage in service to Krishna and chant his holy names, that um, the Lord never forgets his devotee. But on our side of things, what's the point in taking a bath and then covering yourself with dirt again? So a devotee needs to become steady and avoid becoming influenced by the material energy and not engage in material activities. Otherwise, what's the point if you're chanting the holy names and you're following the process and then you just, after that, engage in material activities with material consciousness? Then, you're just throwing away the advancement that you're making. Unless you're very advanced, of course. If you're very advanced, you can perform any activities in Krishna Krishna consciousness. It's not material activity, but if we deliberately sort of go off and go to the cinema and go to restaurants and blah blah blah, and just be a materialist, but we're chanting at the same time, it's kind of like contradiction, And why would you do that if you're following the process seriously? You wouldn't want to engage in material activities. You wouldn't want to do those things. They'd be distasteful because you get a taste in spiritual life. Material activities become distasteful. There's nothing there for us. It's just emptiness. Once you taste the nectar of chanting and serving the deities or doing some service, reading the Bhagavatam, talking about the Lord, once you get that taste, then these material activities become meaningless and unattractive. You don't want to engage in them. It's not that you artificially don't engage in them. You just sort of like, you have all these desires in your mind, but you're just artificially stopping yourself from doing them. The better situation is that you're just naturally unattracted to those activities by being absorbed in devotional service and all the various aspects of sadhana. And then it's real attraction to Krishna and real uh, aversion to the material energy. It's just not interesting. You're not interested in it. There's nothing. Okay. Did you want to say something about that one, or should we move on?
Yes, Prabhu, I appreciated the points that you shared, that um, once a devotee becomes sufficiently purified that he finds taste in spiritual activities, then naturally, like, he does not want to involve himself in mundane sense gratification, because he becomes aware that he has a more positive alternative to what he has been doing. So actually, I think that's a huge turn in someone's spiritual life when they begin to experience some taste.
Yeah, that's the thing. We need to get that taste, in devotional service. Otherwise, eventually we just take up material activities again. You know, if we don't get something, if we don't feel something when we chant or when we do as service, if we don't feel that attraction, then we can understand that we need to do something to change that. We need to get this attraction and this taste in spiritual life. Okay, did you want me to read the next one, or did you want to read the next?
I can read the next one.
Okay.
Text 5. Excuse me. Atah kayam imam vidvan avidya kama karma bihi arabdha iti naivasmin prati buddho anusajjate. Translation: those who are in full knowledge of the bodily conception of life, who note that this body is composed of nescience, desires, and activities resulting from illusion, and do not become addicted to the body. Do not become addicted to the body. Purport: as stated in the previous verse, those with good intellect, sudhiyaha, do not accept themselves to be the body. Being a creation of nescience, the body has two types of activities in the bodily conception. When we think that sense gratification will help us, we are in illusion. Another kind of illusion is to think that one will become happy by trying to satisfy the desires that arise from the illusory body, or by attaining elevation to the higher planetary systems, or by performing various types of Vedic rituals. This is all illusion. Similarly, material activities performed for political emancipation and social and humanitarian activities performed with an idea that people of the world will be happy are also illusory, because the basic principle is the bodily conception, which is illusory. Whatever we desire or perform under the bodily conception is all illusion. In other words, Lord Vishnu informed Prithu Maharaj that although these sacrificial performances set an example for ordinary people, there is no need for such sacrificial performances as far as his personal self was concerned. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.45, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtraigunya Bhavarjuna, Nirtavanto Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. The Vedas mainly deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. The ritualistic performances recommended in the Vedas mainly depend upon on the three modes of material nature. Consequently, Arjuna was advised to transcend the Vedic activities. The activities Arjuna was advised to perform were the transcendental activities of devotional service. So, this purport is actually very instructive, because when, especially in the beginning of my own Krishna consciousness, and also I have encountered several other devotees who always make this inquiry that, oh, why do you say that, building cancer hospitals is not important, or fighting for rights of the impoverished poor people, or rights of women is less important. These kind of questions like naturally arise in a person's heart, especially when they are, I would say most people, um, even devotees, are not at such an advanced level of Krishna consciousness. So there is merit to these kind of activities, in their opinion. And it is true, there is merit to certain activities when we are living in a material setting. But Prabhupada is actually directing our attention to a different dimension, which is above all of these conceptions. So the it this it does not mean that devotees are supporting injustice, devotees are supporting violence, devotees have to keep quiet when they're enduring violence or abuse or maltreatment. That is not the meaning of what Prabhupada is trying to say. But beyond all these designations, as Prabhupada is saying, the bodily conception, through attaining, through political emancipation or social and humanitarian activities, just simply by doing political emancipation or social and humanitarian activities, the soul will not find its complete or full happiness. That's the idea here in Prabhupada's purports. And I feel personally also this is a very important idea. As long as it is Kali Yuga and as long as the material world exists, there will be discrepancies in how people conduct themselves. And as devotees, it's important that we speak up in a proper way against violence, injustice, and such unfair treatment of people. Devotees must speak up. But at the same time, the soul will find its peace, its happiness, its fulfillment when one can move beyond the bodily concept of life and palpably nourish, palpably feel their connection with Krishna. So that kind of happiness is a different dimension altogether. And it comes with practice. The taste in that dimension comes with practice, as you were suggesting, Prabhu. Like it takes time to come to relish spiritual activities. But when one starts relishing spiritual activities, then one begins to understand that all of the other things are related to the body and the mind. But this relishing of spiritual activities, it pertains to the soul, and it brings a deep sense of protection, a deep feeling of happiness, a deep sense of fulfillment by serving the Supreme Lord. So this is also Krishna's advice in Bhagavad Gita, that everything that's happening around, especially what is given in the Vedas, is pertaining to the modes of material nature. But now, like, because the devotees have the knowledge that has been handed down carefully through the parampara system, they have the opportunity to elevate themselves beyond the modes, beyond the regular day-to-day struggles, and look at that aspect of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord and feel safety and protection from the Supreme Lord. So that's the transcendental or devotional platform which Prabhupada is suggesting that we move towards. So that's what I gained from reading this purport. And Prabhu, if you would like to add something.
Yeah, I was going to say that your point about humanitarian activities and helping the helpless people in the world, we automatically do that by engaging in Sankirtan, in the Sankirtan Yajna. We feed the people prasadam, people who maybe are on the street and they're hungry, they're desperate. We feed them prasadam. We give them spiritual knowledge. We give them a chance to free themselves from the suffering condition that they're in. They hear the holy names, and they can become liberated from their suffering condition. I mean, that's the topmost platform when you think about that. You can't give anyone anything better than that, becoming free from suffering and giving them the Lord, basically, in the form of the holy name or in the form of a book or prasadam. So automatically, those types of activities are covered by the Sankirtan Jagya. Um, and of course, we're giving them extra. We're not just feeding them, we're giving them Krishna Prasadam. So we have that extra dimension of spirituality that we're giving to people. And the other thing was that I like this verse that was quoted from the Bhagavad Gita, where it says, "Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety." So we don't need to ever sort of strive for those things. Uh, we can be free from anxiety for gain and safety. We don't have to be in anxiety about getting things. We know that the Lord will provide everything that we need according to our nature and according to what we need. He will supply that, and He does that in such a way that we can make advancement and safety. You know, we're never safe. I've been reading this lately a lot in many quotes that this idea of safety is an illusion, because everything can be taken away anytime. The world can fall apart. Economic systems can break down. We can't pay the rent anymore, or there's an earthquake. Whatever it is, there's so many things in the material world that can just destroy all that so-called safety. And just being established in the self and taking shelter of the Lord is the safest position to be in. When you look at Srila Prabhupada, how he lived in a very simple place in India, in Vrindavan, and he was very happy, perfectly happy. He actually said on a few occasions that, we're happy to live in a mud hut. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to have a big palace or a big temple. We can just chant the holy names and we'll be happy doing that. We'll be self-satisfied. But for the preaching, we have to establish these big temples and these big luxurious buildings. So, when you see him and the way he lived, how simple he was, and he just accepted any situation. He didn't make demands. He would go into a situation and just accept it and carry on in his devotional service. So I thought that was something I got from the verse.
Yes,
Okay,
Prabhu.
uh, shall we save the next verse for tomorrow?
Yes, and Ruchi Mataji is also on the call. So if she would like to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I joined late. Not feeling well, but I just wanted to join. Otherwise, it breaks the sequence. So yeah, I had to ask. Like many times, we hear about this law of attraction and the YouTube channels. Many times that the more you attract. So I see that people who have a lot of money, they attract a lot of wealth, and they can do a lot of charity, and reach higher realms without having to suffer so much. Because uh, I feel that when we suffer for whatever reason, for other people's mistakes or whatever, then we just start going into that whirlwind of suffering, which is very not so easy to come out of. And it is not the person's fault, but it's just like, I've heard that, because everybody has sinned. Nobody, we are all in this material world because we all have sinned, but people just get past their karma somehow. All these celebrities and all the people who have a lot of money. uh, so can you explain something about that? Because I feel we just suffer being on the spiritual path more, and then if we don't try, it is very difficult to sometimes keep the balance of not reacting to other people's mistakes, that it is other people are doing wrong, just let it be and just not react to it, and then it makes us suffer, and then the suffering cycle continues because it is very difficult to come out of. uh, yeah, so can you explain that? Because if like a person reacts, then they are losing their sense of equilibrium and their sense of goodness, which like people on the spiritual path are supposed to have, is like not react to uh, the bad things of other people and just try to do the right thing. But how difficult it is in the present age without any support any uh, from anybody. That is what, like, yeah, that's what my question is always to sacrifice, then you're always going to just suffer, and that will be like, okay, this was your life, you chose this path, and be happy with it, being happy knowing that you were right. So that's, how does it make a difference? You were right, so what's the big deal? I was wrong, but I didn't suffer so much. So something like that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. That's a question, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, that so basically the question is that we chose to perform sacrifice as devotees, and if we suffer in that situation, then we just have to tolerate that because we understand that we've made the right choice. Is that right?
Yeah, versus compared to other people who are not even worried about what's right or wrong or setting an example, because they are like the rich keep getting richer and the celebrities and everybody, they just are having fun, and where is the reaction coming to them? I don't see it. And because they are like, okay, so we are wrong, so what's the big deal? You live the right life you choose, you think to be right, and we live the life we think to be right. So you can be happy in thinking that you are a very right person, like they'll say, but ultimately we are not suffering, we are enjoying our life that God has given us. We only have one life to live, that's what they say. So can you,
Mm.
so sometimes
Yeah.
it
Well,
feels like,
they're reaping the benefits of their karma, so that they're receiving good karma. But it doesn't mean that they're actually happy. It's just a relief from the suffering. They're not actually happy. It's just the other side of the coin, that it's a relief from the suffering. But you'll find a lot of these famous rich people, they suffer a lot. A lot of them suffer really badly. You know, yeah, there's been many instances of that. That they have millions and billions of dollars. They have huge houses, many houses, boats, cars, everything, but they're still suffering because
But
ultimately they can't be happy.
but a friend of mine told me that the rich, since they do so much of charity willingly or unwillingly, then they will reap the benefits of that charity, and so they'll be rich in the next life too. So so happiness is just like once they are rich, they just keep doing charities, and then so that will give them more money in the next life, so they can enjoy some more. So where is the, yeah.
Well, they're not actually enjoying. That's the thing. Prabhupada describes it like the camel eating thorns, and they're thinking that the thorns are very tasty, but actually what's happening is the thorns are cutting the tongue of the giraffe, and it's tasting its own blood mixed with the thorns. So they think that they're enjoying, but they're actually not enjoying. They're implicating themselves. Uh, they can have charitable contributions and donate to various things, but they're also performing sinful activities that they have to be accountable for. Illicit sex, especially intoxication. They have to get the karma for that, as well as the karma, the good karma. But all in the end is binding us to the material world, whether it's good karma or bad karma. We're still in the material world, and there's no way out unless you take to devotional service. There's no end to it. You'll just remain here, you know, going from one species to the next. So, it's not actually enjoyment,
Yeah,
although it
thanks.
looks like it is. It's
But
illusory, like Prabhupada says here. All this sense of enjoyment is illusory because it pertains to the body. It's not anything to do with the
yeah,
soul.
but the charity that the rich people do will go with them, and so they will have more money in the next life and human birth possibly, because they helped so many humans out of the charity they were able to do with their money.
Well, it's not guaranteed they'll get a human form, and even if they do reap the benefits of those pious activities, they're still suffering because it's not real happiness. They can have as much money, you can have billions of dollars, and still be completely unhappy. Like for instance, Princess Diana, who was married to the future King of England, was completely miserable, totally and utterly miserable, and she had opulence beyond belief, and she was reaping the benefits of her pious activities by becoming a princess in the royal family. So you know, and so that's a very good example that she was in that situation, but she was actually suffering so much. And even as someone is not suffering on that level, they're not enjoying. That's the thing. You can have as much money as you want, but you're not actually enjoying because it pertains to the body. So it's not actual enjoyment. It's an illusory happiness,
Yeah,
and
that,
there's no safety either. There's no safety. You can have as much money as you can imagine in the world, and still, perish.
yes, thanks Prabhuji for making it clearer. Thanks a lot. Yeah, just
Okay.
need that reconfirmation every day almost.
Yeah. I mean, we've got the greatest wealth. We have access to the holy names. We have access to this great literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have a devotee association. We have access to real happiness. Regardless if we've got lots of money or not, we'll be happy in all situations. Like Prabhupada was happy when he was poor and when he had so much facility, he was still the same. That's because he was truly happy. He had actual happiness. So it didn't matter to him whether he was loitering in the streets in New York City without a place to live or no friends or anything. He still was the same. He was still happy. He was still thinking of the Lord all the time. But he was trying to see what the Lord's plan was. But he was happy. He was completely happy.
Yeah, thanks for your nice comments.
Okay. Well, shall we finish up and then resume tomorrow?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you so
Okay.
much for the nice discussion. Srila Prabhupada
Yeah.
ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam
Jai.
ki jai. One
Jai.
last thing. Tomorrow I have Gaur Aarti, which means that I won't be able to join.
Okay.
But what I could do is at 4:45 I can begin the recording, and then
Yeah.
I can make you the host for the rest of the
Okay.
session. That's
Okay.
possible.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.